Hello everyone and welcome back to Let's Play Super Mario 64. In the last part we started off the game and got a decent chunk of the way through Bob-Omb Battlefield, and now it's time for Mario Wings the Sky, the 5th star, except no it's not. I mentioned last time that you can do stars in largely any given order in the game, and that is true, but there are some you need to wait until you get the special caps to actively be able to complete. And so when I come across those in this LP, if I don't have the special cap yet, what I'm going to do is just skip it and go to the next star, and if I can't do any future stars from there in the level, I just move on to the next one. Hence why I mean by I do everything I can in a world on a given visit before moving on to the next one. So instead for the 6th star, we want to come over here near this chain jump, pound in the peg that's keeping it in place, and it'll break that gate over there, allowing us to get the 5th star here in this world. There's actively a way you can actively pick up one of the Bob-Ombs and place it down, letting you clip through the fence, which is a speedrun thing, but I don't care to do it myself. I think you can technically finish that stage I'm skipping for now with a lot of very precise firings of the cannon, but due to the draw distance and what we need to hit with the cannon, it's just not worth it in my opinion. So instead we're going to move on to our next level, but just to showcase, even though our next level in order is going to be Course 2, Whomp's Fortress, we can open this door with the 3-star on it and access even the 4th course in the game. Hence the other half of the open course design of this game. You can do things in a lot of different orders, and if you're not liking how a level's feeling, you're having trouble with the mission, just move on to somewhere else. Stop and press Z to crouch, then press A to do a high backward somersault. To perform a side somersault, run, do a sharp U-turn, and jump. You can catch lots of air with both jumps. Honestly, when it comes to like early play, nailing in the backflip and side hop are very important to help you get around some level design, even more so than I'd say the triple jump. If only because the triple jump takes a lot more space to get to your full height, whereas as long as you have enough space to do a backflip or do a brief run forward, then the U-turn for the side hop, you can get a lot of height out of those in the meanwhile. The only jumps more important than that are the long jump for obvious reasons and the wall jump, but even then you're only going to really need that for like high tier play. Hello, another Toad. It was Bowser who stole the stars. I saw him with my own eyes. He's hidden 6 stars in each course, but you won't find all of them in some courses until you press the cap switches. The stars you found will show on each course's starting screen. If you want to see some of the enemies you've already defeated, select the stars you've recovered from them. In the case you want to refight the mini-bosses for some reason. For now, though, time for what's probably, in my eyes, the more iconic level in the game, Whomp's Fortress. Chip off Whomp's block. Hello, the Lakitu brothers here, cutting in with a live update on Mario's progress. He's about to learn a technique for sneaking up on enemies. The trick is this: he has to walk very slowly in order to walk quietly. And wrapping up filming techniques reported on earlier, you can take a look around using C right and C left. Press C down to view the action from a distance. When you can't move the camera any farther, the buzzer will sound. This is the Lakitu brothers, signing off. So, a thing we start seeing in this stage moving forward is that there's specific enemies, usually piranha plants, you actively need to sneak up on because they're asleep. In order to actively damage them. And that's important, namely just so you can get past them safely or to kill them in the case you want to get the coin they drop, and trust me, there will be a reason to do that we'll talk about in a few moments. For right now, our goal here in Whomp's Fortress is to reach the very top of it, just like it was back in Bob-Omb Battlefield. In fact, that's largely what the first mission in any given level is. The path is narrow here. Easy does it. No one is allowed on top of the mountain, and if you know what's good for you, you won't wake up anyone who's sleeping. Move slowly, tread lightly. Walking slowly with the analog stick is faster than you'd think, but it feels tenser in the moment because piranha plants do a surprisingly high amount of damage in this game, albeit something I haven't covered yet. Recovering HP in this game is incredibly easy. You just gotta grab a coin. You gain as much HP back as the value of the coin, which yellow coins are worth 1, red coins are worth 2, and blue coins, in the case you find them, are worth 5. Caution! Narrow bridge. Cross slowly. You can jump to the edge of the cliff and hang on, and you can climb off the edge if you move slowly. When you want to let go, press either Z or the analog stick in the direction of Mario's back. To climb up, press up on the control stick. To scary up quickly, press the A button. Again, early game levels especially have a lot of the same signs and various different wordings because they want you to learn these things, considering how new it all was back in '96. Yeah, though, to get a little more into it on our way up to the top, largely the game's missions and the courses follow the same general flavors. Like, there's usually a mini-game adjacent one, there's an 8 red coins, there's a get to the top or otherwise deepest portion, there's an aesthetic gimmick, and there's also usually one, at least in some way, tied to the various special caps in the game we'll get to later on, as we've already heard about the wing cap for the red block and all that. What they are, though, we'll see depending on the level. It makes me so mad! We build your houses, your castles. We pave your roads and still you walk all over us. Do you ever say thank you? No. Well, you're not gonna wipe your feet on me. I think I'll crush you just for fun. Do you have a problem with that? Just try and pound me, wimp. Ha! And here we got King Whomp. He walks towards you and then just tries to faceplant to smash you. With that said, for one thing, his AI doesn't know how to handle you being directly underneath him, so they're just walking in a circle. But also, you can just completely clip through his model for some reason, and thus his hitbox by doing a ground pound in the middle of it all, because I think technically speaking, ground pounds you're immortal during, or at least invincible more accurately. But you can just try to walk around him and then jump on top of him to ground pound that bandage on his back to actually do damage. 3 hits and he's out, as has become standard practice across all of gaming over the decades it's been going on. No, crushed again. I'm just a stepping stone after all. I will grovel. Here, you win. Take this with you. 1 star down for this level, 5 to go, sort of. There's another star we've yet to talk about that's present in every single one of the main courses, but we'll talk more about that when we do our first one this part. I do kind of find it interesting, though, that despite Bob-Omb Battlefield being the actual first level in the game, Whomp's Fortress is the one that gets all the love and nostalgia flashbacks should it ever return. And I think a lot of it comes down to Bob-Omb Battlefield is very flat and open, so you can explore and get used to the controls and all that. Meanwhile, Whomp's Fortress is the first level that's mostly actually platforming, and thus it's the first real level of sorts. I guess you could look at Bob-Omb Battlefield more as the tutorial. And if that's the case, I think they ultimately made the right choice, because I do find Whomp's Fortress to be, honestly, one of my favorite levels in the game, even though it has one of my least favorite stars in the game we'll talk about later this part. For right now, though, Star 2 in Whomp's Fortress is to the top of the fortress. Now, at the top of the fortress, it's even on the painting, there is a castle tower where King Whomp once was, and we need to platform up that, and the star is at the top of it. Now, worth noting, I mentioned last time that Mario especially has some weird trouble getting around in tight circles or turning directly around. Part of that is also probably on the controller itself. Worth noting, in this LP, I am actively using an N64 controller. For certain game consoles, I just cannot play them without the original controller shape. The N64 and the GameCube are probably the top of that alongside the Wii. Because using anything that's not that just feels wrong because the controls are just not either in the right place or things of that nature. And while it's ultimately more comfortable for me, the N64 controller's own issues do every now and then come into the highlight. Time for Mission 3 here in Whomp's Fortress. This is Shooting to the Wild Blue. This is a star I do in the way that's not the main way you're meant to do it. What you're meant to do is actually use a cannon here, and the cannon for this particular stage, because there's one in a Bob-Omb Buddy you can talk to unlock it in every stage, is over here near this little water pool. You want to shoot from the cannon up either into that little cubby up there by hitting one of the pillars, or onto the little fire pole over there directly. With that said, I'm going to use this moment to talk about the game as a wall jump, because you can just wall jump up to where the star is after a triple jump. The thing is with wall jumping in 64, it's not like later games where you can hug the wall and slide down and do it at any point. You need to press the jump button again almost as soon as you make contact with the wall. You know the rough timing of it relatively if you fail it, and then Mario will get knocked backwards going, ooh! And honestly, with one personal exception, I think it's probably the most precise control the game has, and I just don't find it very comfortable to use. You've recovered 8 of the power stars. Now you can open the door with the big star, but Bowser's just ahead. Can you hear the princess calling? Well, it doesn't say finale in the title, so probably not. Thankfully, the wall jump isn't too required in the game. I think off the top of my head, at most it's required for 5 stars out of the 120. Maybe 6 single-digit stars either way you need to use it in. But what can be especially precise is doing it multiple times in a row, because there is at least 2 stars technically where you need to chain one wall jump to the next several times in a row. And if you get the rhythm down, it's not too bad, because those areas are specifically designed to be wall jumped back and forth in. But doing it in places where you're not meant to use it, but you can definitely be a little annoying. I think the wall jump is probably one of the things they improved the most on in later games, because you get that hugging of the wall and sliding down it like it's Mega Man X that gives you a perfect time to do it from one to the next. Plus, they just make it overall a little more lenient with button timing. But honestly, the fact that it feels already as good as it does in what is their first 3D venture is really impressive. Again, Mario 64 is an incredibly impressive game for how much they actively just got so right feeling in 1996 at that. On that note, I should probably talk about my experience with the game. We had a copy of this while I was growing up. It was in the house before I was born, because I was born the following year. And I played it as a kid, but it never really grabbed me a lot. But again, that's probably because, for one thing, we had other games in the house that were later 3D games that were, by and large, more impressive to a young child. But I also just preferred how other games felt in terms of structure, because I'm not going to say wandering nature of this, but the more open course nature of it just didn't appeal to me as much as a kid. I can respect the hell out of it, but if I had to say play a game that was 3D platforming with set levels, or at least more tight-knit level design, I would much prefer to do that than something that's more open like this. That's actively why, even though I will fully admit that Sunshine, Galaxy 1, and Galaxy 2 have their own incredible issues that are extremely unique to their own structures, I do prefer to go back to them, as rare as I do, because I don't honestly go back to 3D Mario platformers that often. With that said, they definitely struck a good note in Odyssey between the two types in a way that makes that overall the most interesting version of that, to me specifically. But then again, it's like Mario Odyssey is the culmination of, at that point, over 20 years of thought and processing and iterating on design. Mission 5 for Whomp's Fortress has fallen to the cage down, so if we go over here, we can get this owl out of the tree. Who's there? Who woke me up? It's still daylight. I should be sleeping. Hey, as long as I'm awake, why not take a short flight with me? Press and hold A to grab on. Release A to let go. I'll take you wherever you want to go, as long as my wings hold out. Watch my shadow and grab on. This is probably one of the more finicky mechanics in the game, which is good, because from memory, I think this is the only level it's in, maybe one other that's completely optional. You can grab onto the owl, and they'll fly up to the peak of the level design effectively, and then they just kind of hover around. You can influence the owl's direction with the analog stick, and we need to land in that cage with the star right there. With that said, because of the camera angle there, seeing your drop shadow is rough. I can feel that out pretty well, but I've also played this game several times, so I have a decently good idea of where the spacing is there. On a first run, that is probably one of the hardest stars in early game. And now time for the final stage in the level, Blast Away the Wall. I hated this star as a kid because I just couldn't figure it out for so long. With that said, on especially modern displays, even with the game up-resed in certain ways, it's very easy to tell what you have to do here because you may have already noticed the seam we need to aim for. But before we go after that, I am killing piranha plants and going for coins around the stage. Why? Well, I mentioned there's technically a 7th star in every single main course. In order to get that star, you need to reach a high coin score in the level of 100 coins. You can do this in largely any given mission within a level, but I always recommend doing it in the latest one just so you have anything that's unlocked fully unlocked. Strategies to keep in mind here is that enemies will often drop coins upon being defeated. They often group several coins in a row, but also get all the red coins and blue coins you can, because every red coin counts for 2 and every blue coin counts for 5. Upon grabbing the 100th coin, the star will spawn above you. What's interesting about the 100 coin stars is that you can save and continue right from grabbing them, and you'll stay in the level. Meaning if you want to, you can get 2 stars done at once, which is a very efficient strategy for a lot of stages in the game. There's even some stages where it's most efficient to do this during the main red coin mission. With that said, they definitely downgraded this mechanic in Sunshine, because getting ahead of ourselves, in Sunshine, when you get the 100 coin star, you're forced out of the level for some reason. I've never understood why. So we need to blast away the wall in this stage, and blast would imply the use of the cannon. We need to aim for either of the corners over here, specifically the one more further away from us, and break it. The star is just embodied in there. If you look carefully even earlier in this video, you can even kind of see the star through the seam that marks the difference between the main part of the wall and the corner there. But yeah, kid me hated this one because I just couldn't figure out which wall I needed to blast away at, and aiming with the cannon is already kind of rough at times, so it just didn't click with me. I still don't like the star now, but that's because it's the only time they really make you do something exactly like this in the game, in a way that is kind of negative. There's times where having a very unique moment is a positive, but this is one of those times where, I'm not going to say it's obscure enough because you can only aim around the cannon, but the idea of it is just so counter compared to what else you can do in the game in most other levels, I guess is the way I'll phrase it. With that said, we're now completely done with Whomp's Fortress. We can move on to other worlds now. Sometimes you'll bump into invisible walls at the edge of the painting worlds. If you hit a wall while flying, you'll bounce back. Not that that'll ever really happen for me, but there's some cases where it might come into play. Yeah, most stars in a world are short enough. You can actively probably complete a world in at most like 20, 30 minutes if you're super good about finding things and exploring quickly. On a first run, I'm probably going to say probably closer to an hour, hour and a half in some worlds as you either die or are searching for coins in one regard or another. Welcome to Course 3, Jolly Roger Bay, Star 1, Plunder in the Sunken Ship, our first of a couple different water levels in this game, which honestly I don't mind for the most part. Attention! Read before diving in. If you stay under the water for too long, you run out of oxygen. Return to the surface for air, or find an air bubble or coins to breathe while underwater. Press A to swim. Hold A to swim slow and steady. Tap A with smooth timing to gain speed. Press up on the control stick and press A to dive. Press down on the control stick and press A to return to the surface. Hold down and press A while on the surface near the edge of the water to jump out. Swimming in this game is a little slow, but the water levels are usually small enough where you don't need to worry too much about that. Now, the draw distance can be a little rough in these levels specifically because of how open the underwater segments actively are, so getting 100 coin stars can be a little rough. But if there's something I especially like about these levels, it's the music. The Jolly Roger Bay theme is one of my favorite soothing video game tracks in the genre's history. I think I've talked about before that I usually listen to music while I sleep or something like that. And I burned some CDs back in high school, especially in middle school. And this was on at least 2 of those CDs to help me fall asleep. But that said, Plunder in the Sunken ship's down there, but the entrance to it's blocked by the giant eel Unagi. With that said, I didn't understand how to get him to leave consistently as a kid. Nowadays, I think what you have to do is just get in front of him, then go all the way up to the surface, and then dive back down, and usually he'll be gone and wandering the underwater segment at that point. At least, that's the most consistent feeling way to do that. Maybe there's something a little better, but for right now, it's all that really matters. Once we get into the ship, we'll be onto the main chunk of this star, but you do need to be careful because, as they mentioned, your oxygen counts down 1 pip every, 3, 4, 5 seconds while you're underwater, thus you have a limited amount of health. With that said, surfacing or just grabbing a coin is enough to regain your health if you need be. Heck, technically speaking, if you take damage from enemies otherwise in levels that have water deep enough for you to swim, if you're at even 1 health, you can enter the water, dive down a little bit, dive back up, and your health will completely regenerate out of nowhere. So the thing we need to do here in the ship is investigate those chests in a specific order. Investigating the wrong one in the wrong order will get you shocked and make you take some damage, but if you do it right, the water lowers and you can get up to the top before the water drains all the way. And at the top of the ship, effectively, is a item block containing the first star of this level. Now, I mentioned last time that stars usually are pretty short in this game to begin with, but let the fact we've more than tripled our star count from the start of this video showcase how fast you can gain a lot of stars pretty quickly in this game, even in some of the larger levels. That's one thing I really appreciate about this game and Odyssey specifically, is that very few stars take you that long to get. As much as I do prefer the level structure in theory for Sunshine and especially Galaxy 1 and 2, there is something I appreciate about how quick it is to get an important thing in this in Odyssey. To some people, I know that also is a detraction because they like the fight for the item in question, but I think it really depends on the series. Like, for Mario, I think you need to hit a healthy balance of very linear levels and more open, quick things. Meanwhile, other collectathons, I think, get a little too long-winded in what they want you to do. Hi, Donkey Kong 64. Hi, most of the Rareware catalog in the N64, actually. Our next mission here in Jolly Roger Bay is Can the Eel Come Out to Play? We have to play with Unagi once again. Stick near the hole, but not directly in front of him. He'll wave his head out a little bit, and he'll then leave. The star is at the tip of his tail. You need to touch it to release it from him, and then actively go collect it. With that said, be careful of Unagi, because touching him does a lot of damage to you. I know a lot of people found Unagi scary, and I think it's largely because more visually intense games were a thing at the time, but like the original Resident Evil, I just never found it that frightening. Mind you, I say that. The shark in the underwater portion of the lab in Ocarina of Time scared me, so I think it is largely an art style thing. I always just found Unagi kind of goofy, even as a wee little bab. And even though later entries would either cutify him or make him a little uglier in the case of, say, Mario Kart 8 or the equivalent enemy in Odyssey, I never found those two horrifying either, if only at that point I was older, but also, that's just how eels look. They're kind of weird looking. They're kind of dorky. I love them. Mission 3 for Jolly Roger Bay is Treasure of the Ocean Cave, which, as a kid, I thought was actively the first star in the area, despite it always being the third on the menu, because This is one of the few cases where one of the first missions isn't to get as deep or high in a level as you can. But because of the earlier levels, I was trained into doing that, so my first instinct in this level was to go as far into level design as I could to get a star, and oh, that gets you this one. Oh, also, see, that reminds me, getting to the top of certain trees, finding them in the level design, or going to certain places will make a 1-up spawn in. They just prevent you from getting a game over, which isn't even that punishing in this specific entry. What do you have to say, sign? As soon as I get in front of you. Keep out! That means you! Arrgh. Anyone entering this cave without permission will meet certain disaster. And by that they mean there's collapsing stone pillars that are very easy to dodge. In the back of this cave is where the star is, but we need to do another treasure chest puzzle. We need to touch them in a certain order. You kind of just gotta go in a plush shape formation from memory. Ahoy, matey, I have sunken treasure here, I do. But to pluck the plunder, you must open the chests in the right order. What order is that, ye say? I'll never tell. The captain. But yeah, game overs in this game, what they do is they just send you back to the title screen and you have to walk back into the castle. Meanwhile, a death just sends you back out of the painting to begin with, so there's not really that much of a difference. I'm of the mindset where lives can have a purpose in a lot of platformers still even nowadays, but for Mario, even as early as this entry, there was never much of a point to lives. Even the checkpoints in later games do a lot more to be like, okay, if I die, I start here rather than at the start of the level, which matters more. But with that, I'm going to need to end this off here. Thank you guys for watching, and in part 3, we're going to do some more stars in Jolly Roger Bay before heading elsewhere. See you guys then.